A very good morning, afternoon, and the evening based on your location. I would like to say great thanks to Raj here to execute the month-long event series on the automation bootcamp successfully. I will try my level best to make the session interactive and alive, so please bear with me for the next 50 to 55 minutes. I hope by the end of your precious 50 minutes, you will be confident enough to build, use, and implement Azure Logic Apps for your customer or for your own company in more prominent, optimized, and the cost-efficient way to get the best return for your investment. I would like to briefly introduce myself here, then I will start with the agenda for the session. My name is Ambesh Singh, currently working with the KPMG Deutschland as a Dynamic 365 architect and technical manager within Microsoft practice. Prior that, I have worked with Pearson VUE and the EA Games. And mostly in my career, I've worked with Microsoft in different product groups and the global consulting and the deliveries. I'm also mentor and ambassador of 365 Saturdays and speaking on Azure Dynamic 365 and Power Platform technologies on the different global platform. Let's see the high level of agenda for today. I will do my best to cover as much as from the topic mentioned here, as well as the topic outside from the list. So we will cover a brief about Azure Logic App ecosystem, how and where to build, some insight on pricing and bonus tips from my learning in Azure Logic App implementation journey, and so on, followed by the QA. So before I would start with the Logic app. I just need from you guys to use one of the functionality of the MS Teams, and just please raise your hand there if you would like to see the demos or the Azure ecosystem, basically Azure Logic App ecosystem on the window first, or is that okay? Like if we can do at the last, like as a demo or in between that one. So maybe if you want to see it in our initial slides, just please raise your hand.
Sorry, Ambesh, sorry, just could you clarify your question again, please? Sorry.
So my question is like, if you want to see a demo in the initial one, like look and feel about the Azure Logic App, because there will be a lot of beginners into the sessions, and I would like to make them comfortable, because if I'm talking over the slide, maybe they are not able to correlate with the ecosystem and the UI, how and what I'm talking about. So that's what I just need to ask if they want to see it at the initial phase or they want to see it in between or the end of the session at the time of the demo. So if you want to see it right now. Okay, so probably Sorry,
it's a bit of a hard one to answer, Ambesh. I think maybe you should just go with, because you're going to cover it anyway, right? So as long as you can cover it, let's see what people are saying in the chat window. Let's see what they prefer in the chat window.
So I will start anytime based on the feedback, no way. So let's start it. What is the Azure Logic App? So as per the Microsoft definition, Logic Apps is a cloud service that help you to schedule, automate, and orchestrate tasks, business process, and the workflow when you need to integrate apps, data system, and service across enterprise or your organizations. The next question is why? So the simple answer is like any Azure product, you don't have to worry about the building, hosting, scaling, managing, maintaining, and the monitoring your apps. Logic Apps handle this all the concerns for you, plus you only pay for what you use for based on your consumption model. And the next another important question, like how Logic App works. So every Logic App workflow start with a trigger, which fires a specific event happen or when a new data meets the specific criteria. So we will see in more detail in the coming slides, as well as in the demo. And the most important, where to start from. So you can build your Logic App visually with the Logic App Designer, which is available on the Azure portal, like portal.azure.com through your browser. And you could do it also in the Visual Studio or the Visual Studio Code. Honestly, I haven't used Visual Studio to build the Logic Apps, but you can do just in case if you need it. You are more familiar with that. For me, building over the apps like on the Logic App Designer is much more easier, convenient, and cleaner. So just let me quickly show the Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code, anything that how it's look like. So I just popped out the Visual Studio Code on my screen. And here, if you can see, um, you need to go to the extension first, and you need to search for the Azure Logic Apps extension. You need to enable it. And then after that, once the extension will be enabled, you need to connect your Azure Logic App extension with your environment. So you just need to pass your credential based on your single sign-in or the multi-factor authentication. You will be able to connect, and then you will be able to see all of your subscription here. So if you have 1, 2, or more subscription, it will be popped here. The same is for the integration account. So based on your environment, like if you have consumption-based environment or if you have an IS environment. So suppose in my particular environment, I have this all of the Logic app. If I need to create anyone or the new one, I could simply go on the top and I just click on the Create Logic App tool. And then I need to find out the resource group where I need to provision it. So if you want to create altogether the brand new resource group, you could definitely go and create a new resource group from here based on your privileges. So if you have a contributor, it's definitely you could go and create it. And then after, so suppose I'm for now I'm just using the existing one, and then you need to select a location where you really which region and data center you really want to host it. I just for my preference because I'm sitting in very near to the West European data center, so I would definitely prefer that. And then you just give the name of your Logic app and then press the enter. So this is an easy way to create the Logic apps from here. And if you want to see or like if you want to see particular or if you want to edit it, you could definitely go and open it from the existing one. So I just click on that. And here it will be popped up for you. So this is basically like a Logic app I have created earlier in one of the resource groups. So whenever a new response is submitted to the speaker feedback form, it will read all the data from there. So these all the blocks called the action inside the Logic apps, and this metered your pricing. So this is the one thing. The second thing is basically you could definitely go edit it and create it from here. It is probably more easy way if you are very familiar with the Visual Studio UIs and the tool. Okay, then let's quickly go to the next one. And yeah. So we have basically two pricing model, pay as used and the fixed cost. So the first one is the consumption pricing model, and it's run in the public or the global Azure Logic App services. You pay only for what you use. In your Logic App, each steps is an action, and Azure Logic Apps metered all the action that run in your Logic App. Basically, it's like an operational expenditure or OPEX model. The second one is a fixed pricing model, and we generally called as an integration service environment, which is a ISE, that provide a private, isolated, and a dedicated way for you to create and run the Logic apps that can access resources in your Azure virtual network. For this kind of Logic apps that run inside the ISE, and you have to pay the fixed monthly cost for that one. This come as a CapEx model. So you need to also consider a few points in your mind, that action that get skipped due to unmet condition, or the action that don't run because the Logic app stopped before finishing that one. You don't have to pay any cost for those actions. But at the same time, like if you for the action that run inside the loops, Azure Logic app counts each action for each iteration or the cycle in the loop. So example, if you have a 10 action inside a for each loop and it just executed 10 times, then you have to, or the Azure Logic app charge for 100 metered action. So you have to pay the cost for that one. So regarding the pricing detail, like every time a Logic app definition runs the trigger, action, or the connectors, executions are metered. So basically like if you have an action, let me just quickly show basically in a browser that how it's look like. Okay, so I have already a built Logic app. So let me just quickly open that. See, so whatever the block you are seeing here, these all are the action. And for every action, you need to pay 0.000022 cents or the euros. And for the standard connectors, it's 0.000106 euros. And there's a specific connectors like we called as an enterprise connectors. which is basically like for the SAP or some IBM connectors. So those charge a bit expensive, like it's 0.000844 cents. Apart from that, you also need to pay for the data retention, which is 0.11 euros per GB per month. So this is altogether about the pricing. And again, like it also depends on what consumption plans you have chosen for. So you have an ISE or you have a capacity-based plan. Okay. The next thing is triggers. So for that, actually, let me again quickly jump back to the screen and show something what I'm talking about. So open one of the another Logic app. So the triggers are basically like which triggers or start execution of your Logic app. So there are 10 of the triggers or common triggers by default available. So I just created a Logic app. How to create it? Let me just show firstly that one. So you just go as a simple, like either you could go via resource or you could just go as in here. So you just go and search for Azure Logic app. And if you have an access on that one, you will be able to see it here. Because I don't have an access to create a Azure Logic App resources, I won't be able to see. But if you have, you could see, and the moment you will click it there, it will ask the basic requirement, like what subscription you are going to choose, what resource group, what location, what is the name of the Logic App, and few other details related with the logs and the storage. And then it will spin up the Logic App for you. It will take maybe less than 60 seconds to just populate it. The next screen after population, you will see something like that. And let me just quickly go to the blank one. Okay, you will be able to see something like that. And in this particular screen, you could search or just choose any of the common trigger. So suppose when I just need to choose when the HTTP request is received, or if I just need to go as a recurrence trigger, or if I just need to check, okay, if something or some record has been created in the data was table, maybe for account table or account entity in the Dynamic 365 or data was, I just need to trigger. So I could just use those kind of trigger, or I could go with the blank template and I can choose from pre-defined or pre-built template also. So this is also useful. You don't need to start it from the scratch, and you could directly jump over and use it any of the template available. Which is already there. You could definitely search for that one based on the popularity, but based on the cost and everything. And yeah, this is probably the first step. The second step is like regarding the trigger. So basically like Microsoft divided the triggers in majorly three categories. So one is the polling trigger, like an example I just mentioned, when the data will be created or when the new record will be created, updated, edited, or deleted in the Dynamic 365 entities. So you need to trigger. So these kind of the triggers called as a polling trigger. The second is the webhook trigger. So any HTTP based triggers are the webhook, like you just created it, and the moment you could call it from outside, like via some external application, or even from the different Azure component also, like maybe from Azure function, Azure data factory or something. And the third and important one is also the recurrence, like, so maybe you just need to calculate the monthly salary, just an example, or you need to send the email or the newsletters for the marketing or something. So you could use the recurrence one, and you could recur it on every night, every fortnight, or every weekend, every month end, something like based on your requirement. So you could choose definitely anyone from there. So just an example, I just opted for the HTTP request based. This URL will be generated the moment you will save it. So just say I just saved it, and the URL is already there. So I could copy it. I could call this URL directly from the Postman. So this is the first thing. Second thing I would like to show. Second, let's go and open any Logic app back. About the connectors. So connectors, as I mentioned, like because you know the triggers, then maybe based on your business requirement, you need to connect to the heterogeneous system. Maybe you need to connect with the SharePoint, you need to connect with the Oracle or the SQL DB, you need to connect with the Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. So basically Azure Logic Logic apps have more than 300 connectors, standard connectors available. You could go and leverage anything from any connectors from there. Apart from that, it's also give you the scope to actually extend the as in custom connector. So you could create from the scratch, or you could use any of the connectors, and then you could leverage that one as in custom connectors. Then there's an action. Action I told you, like any step, any block is called an action. And let me just quickly show back there if something is open. There are a few things like you could definitely put the comments, which is really useful and a recommended way. So probably this is probably from my side is tip number one. If you're creating any action or any complex scopes, you definitely deserve to provide the comments for that one. It is not only useful for you when you will see your own created logic app down the time, maybe a couple of weeks, couple of hours, or the months after, but it also beneficial for your team. So it's a standard practice, like, because if you are building the logic app or if you're writing the code, you are not writing for yourself, you're writing for the other organization or the entire team for that one. So they also should be able to understand by just looking the comment on the top of that one. Example, like I just put a comment here, I can show you quickly. So I just put a comment: when the item is created in the demo SP list, trigger check every 3 minutes or every 500 days, something like you could definitely put it. I just very specifically increase it to the 500 days because I don't want to run my trigger on every 3 minutes or few seconds, which will definitely charged and metered as per the policy. So comments, that's why it's really important, and it's basically like more important when you have some connectors or HTTP calls. So you could give a high level of it's like other programming language, I would say. So like if you're writing the code in the C#, JavaScript, or any other programming language, you definitely give the comments to explain that what you are doing inside that one. So it's an easy way to find out that thing. Apart from that, like we could definitely go, and this is probably the overview pane. And here you will get a brief and quick explanation that what is your logic app, which resource group, which location it's part of, what subscription you are using, the subscription ID for that one. It's complete definition. So like you have one trigger and 33 action inside that one. So you don't need to go inside and count every action. Definitely not. You could get it from there. The status, you could enable or disable it from here. So currently it is in enable state, and it also give you the last run in last 24 hours. So it has 2 successful runs and the 0 failed. So you don't need to go and validate or filter out and count in the run history. If you have an integration account, it will pop up here. I don't have an integration account, that's why I'm not able to see it there. Let's see quickly on the top pane. So on the top pane, you have few of the basic out of box with any Azure product. So you have a feedback. Yes, if you want to give a feedback to Microsoft, you could definitely leverage this. If you want to open in a mobile, you could do this. It's a new entry in this. Apart from, like, you could export and clone it. So export, if you are really gonna use for your CI/CD pipeline, or you want to move from one instance to the another one, you could leverage this functionality. Clone will give you the opportunity to just move your functionality to the same, or move your logic app in the same resource group. I will come later on this one. You could update the schema, you could disable, delete. This also I will explain in a subsequent slide. Definitely the moment you will edit, it will open in a designer view, and you could refresh it to see what happened latest here. Simply, you could run the trigger manually. So example, I have a trigger run for every 500 days, the maximum limit I have consumed. If I just need to run it quickly and see, okay, what happened, I could just simply click on the run trigger, and I can see it or execute my pulls from there. Then on the left bleeds, you have an overview. Apart from that, few important texts, like if you really need to see or diagnose or solve the problems within your logic app, you could definitely use. It's a kind of the chatbot, automated chatbot. If you want to open the logic app designer or the code view, you could definitely leverage that one. The other option, edit and then open in the code view or the designer. It also contains the version. It also contains all the API connections. So example, if I have make a connection with the Gmail, with the Twitter, with Facebook, with Dynamic 365, with SAP, with IBM. So all the connection will come here, and definitely I could go open and update the entry. So if you change the password or something, you could definitely go edit API connection, and then you will be having option that, okay, how like providing your latest credential into that one. So sometimes what happen, like if you have some administration account and you have to, because of the company policy, you have to change the password for every 30 days or the 90 days. If the moment you will change the password, the logic app is start failing for that one, because then it can't validate the credentials. So you have to come here and you have to update the password from there. And apart from that, there are a few important aspects available into the workflow settings. So in the workflow setting, you could definitely secure your logic app. I will come to this later. And then you have some of the out of box option, like the like a run option, and the history retentions. Then you have some security aspect here. So you could go with the access keys, identity properties, and the lock. Lock basically is like any other Azure product also. So if you don't want that, okay, someone is not able to edit or someone won't be able to delete it, you could definitely put the locks there. There are a few things in the monitoring section, and this is really important. If you are really want to go to with some application inside of those functionality, you could enable it from there. Automation, so the task preview is the new one in the family. Initially it was not there, but still it is in a preview stage, so I'm not going to speak much about that one. And export template is the same what you saw on the top. Definitely at the last, you could raise a support ticket if you think that something is not working as per expected, or it's not providing expected behavior. You could definitely raise that support ticket from there, and based on your model, like what kind of the support model you have purchased from Microsoft, you will get a response from Microsoft as sooner. So this is kind of a high level of overview here. And then basically, I would talk about some of the endpoint security stuff. So logic apps are great, but exposing them as a publicly available HTTP service is clearly far from the perfect. So we will see basically how to solve these challenges by using the inbuilt offering or the API management service, which will be used to secure logic apps HTTP endpoints with the OCP APIM subscription keys, or the other ways like Open Compute Project API management stuff. So let's see and quickly one by one. So there are, apart from like based on my experience, you could also, without leveraging like example the API management services or something, because it also be you also need to bear the cost for that one. So you could make some tricks, like you could pass the auth key in your request header, and you could validate inside the logic app that okay, if the request header is same what you are expecting, you could continue, otherwise just return 401 or something like unauthorized. Then you could definitely think about just storing all of your secure stuff or the password in the Azure Key Vault, because Azure Key Vault meant for that one. It's simply integrated with the logic app. You just need to use a connector for that one, and then you could use all the steps. So you could read the keys based on the version, you could read the current key, or you could even do a lot of things from there itself. The third important aspect, definitely you could think about securing input and output of actions. What does it mean? Like if you're making some of the HTTP calls, let me just quickly go back and show you some of the runs if it is available. If not, then I will just go and open. Just give me a second and I will just open. Meanwhile, basically, like there are the other ways, but just give me a second and it will be here soon. So example, I just opened any already like a successful run. And what I want to show you here, like if you have a logic app, you are making some HTTP calls, and if you are just passing some password into that one, this is a logic app run you are seeing. And here you just saw all the inputs and outputs. So if you really want to secure it, there is an option into the designer. I can show you, and you don't need to do much, and simply go to the setting and just tweak secure input and the secure output. For now, I'm just making a secure input and output and save it back, and we'll show okay how it's look like. Okay, so the first thing is like you could definitely think about using the SIG, which is like a shared access signature. So what does it mean? I have shown you when I was in I just copied the I created for the HTTP one. So edit, and let me just copy the URL, and then it would be probably more clear what I'm talking about. So I'm talking about this key. So this key is the unique key. You could definitely utilize that one. You could validate if there is something wrong with these keys. Nobody will be able to call your logic apps in that case. Especially if it is a HTTP endpoints. So you could definitely use that one. And as a second option, like if you already shared this with some of the team members for the testing purpose, and then you want to move to the production or something, you could definitely go to the access keys and update it from there, because you definitely don't want to just use the keys which is already shared with the multiple teams or the people. So you could go and update your primary or the secondary keys, and then everything will be same. There will be no impact on the behavior. Apart from that, only the keys will be changed. So this is the first step. The second thing is basically like you could definitely leverage the inbuilt identity and access management for internal users who should be having access, who could edit it, who could just read it, who could delete it. You could definitely leverage those functionalities. You could definitely go and think about the IP restriction, or this, as a second option, you could also create a child logic app. So what you need to go to the workflow settings for that one. Currently, this logic app could be called from any of the IP. So you could see, okay, it need to be called only from the other logic app as a child logic app. So this is a one option. And then you could definitely call for the specific IP range, and then you need to whitelist your IPs here. So this is another important aspect, and we definitely need to consider about these things when we are going with the UAT and the production. The last and important aspect is the API management. So, it's another service and the tool available on the Azure. It's for me, it's a bit costly, but it also have a worth for versioning, for secureness. So you could leverage all of the API management stuff inside your logic app. So you could definitely go and leverage that one. Now I would like to talk about the limitation and configuration information for Azure Logic App, and we should really aware about before modeling the Logic App, all the things. So the first and important aspect is like we could create 500 actions per Logic App. I'm sorry, I need to mute someone. Okay, and there's a second thing, like if I'm just creating a nested logic app, then I could go till 8 level. Example, I would show you here. So maybe I could show some runs. Okay, so maybe this one. So this switch is the level 1. And then apart from this switch, like if you have a case, it's level 2, then level 3, or if this is also level 3, and then inside level 4, something like that. So you could leverage and you could go to the depth till 8. You could declare the variables like as per maximum 250. After that, you won't be able to declare any variable. The switch scope case limit to the 25, including the default one. Characters per expression is 8192, and name for the action or trigger should not be more than 80 characters. The same is length or description is 256 characters. You could pass the maximum 50 parameters, and the maximum output could be 10 in that case. If you really need to extend, because definitely there is a complex situation or business requirement where these variables or this count shown or making some of the problems for you, you could definitely think about creating the child or divide your complete logic app into the subsections. And the benefit for that, like you could easily monitor for that. There will be no additional cost charges, because anyway, if it is in a same logic app or the other logic app count for every action execution or action run. It's not like a Power Automate for every for the complete run. So there's a different pricing model for both of them. The run duration is the 90 days in the multi-tenant environment, and for ISE it's a 365 days. And the storage retention is 2 for 90 days, and it's same for 365 days in the ISE one. The minimum recurrence you could go for 1 second, and the maximum you could go definitely for the 500 second. So let's start with a minimum. You can't go less than 1 second for sure, but if the moment I will go with the 501 days, if I will save it, I should be able to see the error here, and it says, okay, I can't go beyond this limit. So that is the aspect here. if you have some of the business requirement where you definitely need to go for more than these limits, there is like you shouldn't consider or bothered about much. You just need to drop an email to the Logic App product team, and they will definitely find a way out for you. So these possibilities are definitely there. The retry attempts is the 90 days. Maximum delay, you could go for 1 day, and the minimum delay is the 5 seconds. So let me just quickly show what is it retry. So example here, I would go back to the setting, and this is the retry policy. So I could go for the default one. So you could get, you could came to know from here that what is the default. I could go with the exponential or the fixed interval, or if I don't want to retry, I would go with the none, but leave it as blank for the 4 because retry doesn't make any impact on your pricing stuff. Okay, so the number of custom connectors, which is really important, and I talked about the custom connectors. So you could use 1,000 per Azure subscription, which is same in ISE and the multi-tenant, but the number of execution, like number of requests per minutes for a custom connectors are limited to 500, where it's 2,000 for the ISE environment. So you also need to consider about this one. If you are using some custom connectors for per minute execution, it should not go more than 500s. Otherwise, then it start failing. Now, I would like to talk some of the bonus tips, and then the first one regarding the disabling and deleting Logic App. So if you are really not going to use Logic App, my recommendation is to delete it, because even if you disabled it, but still you are paying the storage cost for that one. So you could download the template, you delete it, and then recreate it whenever you need it. But you need to disable when you don't want to run your Logic App in those particular moment. So the option, you will get it from the home screen. Let me just quickly show that one. This is I'm talking about. So you could disable it also, but please remember that pooling is still enabled. The moment you will enable your Logic App, if there is something in the pools, it will start triggering that one. So you need to just think about this stuff also. Naming convention is really important, like any other programming language. So if you're creating something for Twitter, then it should not be like your naming convention should be perfect in that case. If you're declaring any variable, anything inside that one, and if the naming convention is not appropriate, it will give you a lot of pain later on. So what I mean to say here, so like initialize variable, counter, initialize variable, temp, something like, so your naming convention should be a meaningful. If you're not gonna give any naming, specific custom names, it will be initialize variable 1, 2, 3, 4 for each loop 1, 2, 3, 4. And at the end of the day, you will be confused in yourself that, okay, for what purpose I have created this and where I have to look for. So the naming convention in that case is really important for any action, any variable, any loops, or whatever you are doing in the Logic App for every actions. Should we use the global or the local variable? So technically there is no local variable in the Logic App. Whatever the variable you have to declare at the root level. So it will be accessed across your Logic App. And you could definitely declare at the root level and reset it, or like there is again another action available, like set variable. So you could reset it multiple times as per your need, but you couldn't declare inside of any of the scopes or for each loop or any other place apart from the root side. So the benefits for the clone functionality, as I mentioned, like you could definitely think about that one. So let me just show you quickly. So the moment you did it clone, you will get an option like, okay, what is the name of the new Logic App? So suppose I have created the Logic App for the dev environment. I need to make like a promoted to the UAT simultaneously, or SIT environment. I could definitely go and rename it, put a prefix for SIT, UAT, or prod or something like that. Initially, recommendation is start with the disable one, because the moment you will enable, the connection is still use the older one. So what does it mean? Suppose I am pushing the data from the SharePoint list, and I'm I'm pulling the data from there and I'm pushing it to the Dynamic 365. So I already created a connection for that one. If you clone it, all the connection will also get cloned. And if it is an enable state, for the same thing, your Logic App run twice, like for Logic App 1 and 2. So you should disable it, then change the connection after cloning, and then enable it back. So that is also you need to consider. Timeout property is really important. You definitely don't want to stuck your logic app for any purpose. So if you have the logic app, if you are calling some of the HTTP calls, let me just show this again quickly. Go to the setting, and there should be a timeout properties. So there's a default value for that one, but if you think that okay, I should hold this, maybe if you're getting some errors from there, maybe for another 2 minutes or 3 minutes or something, or maybe longer than that, you could definitely customize this properties too. How to deal with the async and the synchronous requests, like any other programming languages, we have an async and the sync. So as you know, like async will go in a more parallelism fashion and sync will go in a more linear way. If you, by default, it's async, but if you really want to just go as a linear way, you should always think about to making that sync. The normal scenario is like you're hitting some of the services, and just based on those responses, you are trying to put some values or you want to calculate some values on that one, on the result set. If it is in a loop, then the Azure Logic app, or like as per the normal architecture, it won't give you the guarantee you will get a response immediately. So your loop one run, you expect some results from there, and by the time result is coming, you are already entering the loop 3. Then your complete logic will be failed. So in that scenarios, you could definitely think about to make it as a synchronous one. Okay, the concurrency control is again the important aspect. So you could just see in any of the for each loop. Let me see where I have. So I have a 2 for each loop. So the first one, I would show the run for that also. Not this one, sorry. I'll go to the setting. And for this, my concurrency control is off. So it's by default. And the second one, my concurrency control should be on with the minimum one. Let me check it. Yes, it's on, and the degree of parallelism is 1. You could go till 50 in that case. So let me show you how the result make an impact for that. If I have something, okay, let me go back here quickly and show you the result set, like how it's look like, what the difference it could be. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just reading the SharePoint list, or probably the complete data from the dynamics. And yeah, I'm reading it from the dynamics, maybe top 200 or something. Sorry, let me quickly check it. Top 10. So just see about how it behaves. So I just had the 10 values, and I just put a variable counter here. Like, so it starts with the 1. The next is 10, 3. So as you know, it's concurrency on, and it will go in that fashion. The second one is the same, but it's go in a more linear way. So it should start with the 11. Yeah, and then if I see the next, it should be 12, then 13, then 14. So if you really want to like linear your loop, you could just go and thought for those settings as well. You should definitely try for like think about the try, fail, try again, and success scenario. So there could be the multiple option. There's some out of box option available there. An example, you could definitely wait and watch the response from your HTTP calls. If it is a 200, then you behave accordingly. If it is not a 200, then you could take your decisions accordingly. So this is something you wrote for, but again, like as a setting, there should something already available. Let me just check very quickly and show you. So this retry policy I'm talking about. So it's also make when like 408, 429, 5xxx, like 500, 513 or such kind of error, then it make a default retry for the 4 attempts. So this is also, you might think about that one if you really need to do. This is something really interesting. It's don't take any of your single minute for that one, but it's really worth to thought for. If you're building the logic app, always try to save periodically, like maybe on every once you complete one business requirement, or up after 2 or 3 action implementation, always try to save it. There are 2 benefits for that one. The first benefit is if you're saving your logic app periodically or continuously, if there is any error, you will directly like it will pop up to you and you will see that, okay, this kind of error I have in a logic app, and you could fix it very there and now. The second thing, suppose you created a logic app, you forget to save it, and you went for the lunch or maybe dinner or something. After time you came, and as per your as your policies, if your session has been timeout, you won't be able to retrieve it for sure, and you will lost all of your work which you did it. So saving doesn't make any harm on you. It's always give you the benefits. How I can roll back? So you could definitely go for the CI/CD pipeline and make those things accordingly. But the second option, let me just quickly show. So as I mentioned, like you could definitely go to the versions. It always keep all the version for your changes. If you open the first version, it will definitely not allow you to promote because this is the latest version. But if you know that, okay, till yesterday evening everything was working fine for me, and now somebody changed it and it's not working for me, so you could definitely go and promote that one, and it will override all of the later changes and it will promote that changes to the live one. So this is also important aspect to know. Should I use the preview feature? Definitely not. It's not recommended. You could definitely leverage it in the dev environments, but if you're thinking about the UAT and the production, you should not, because the normal Azure compliance thing, like Microsoft don't take any SLA warranty for that one. They are not going to provide you any support, technical support into that, and you should avoid using the preview feature in your until it's not available, like general availability, or for till the time you should avoid it for sure. Consider difference in the variable data type. So there's no automatic or automated built-in casting into that one. So if you are going to use the integer, please use the integer. If you're going to use the string, please use the string data type while declaring the variable. Otherwise, you need to cast it separately, and it will create a more problem later on. In the failure scenarios, you need to handle it separately. Peak code. So why this is important for me? Not here. Let me just quickly go to the edit window. So as I mentioned earlier, like you could change the code into the designer. So the view you are seeing on the screen is a designer view, and you could definitely leverage the code view also. If you're really technical, you like writing code, you could definitely go and leverage it from there. So you have an option to use an event mode. For me, I think dragging and dropping is quite easy by eventually writing the code, because there you might mess up. But there are scenarios where the code view is really important. If you rename something and if it's already referred multiple places, it will create a problem, and then only ways to go to the code view and change it from there. The second thing is I was talking about the peak code. So it gives you the short glimpse, okay, what is written into the particular step. It's easy, and in terms of the readability, you can't make any changes here, but for the readability purpose, it's quite easy that, okay, what exactly you wrote in the particular action inside. So this is also important aspect to know. How to build the try catch functionality. By default, there is no try catch into the Azure Logic app, and like a C# code or something, you need to build it. There is a way to build it. So I could show this. If something goes wrong in the try, your catch will be executed. Otherwise, at every cost, you finally need to be executed. So this scenario is basically, if you are going to deal with the external system, you don't know what kind of the response you will get if the system is up and run and something like that. So in that case, you might need to log somewhere, or you need to send an email to your administrative or contributor group that, okay, your logic app failing, and please have a look for that one. So those things, those actions you could write in a catch block, and then you could continue it from there. I would definitely love to show the run for that, like how it's look. Let me just try to get something which is in a cancel state. Okay, I would just take a cancel one, where very purposely I just put some scenarios so it will fail. So this is the case. It's fail in this action, and then my catch block has been executed. But for the other runs, my catch blocks is not going to execute it. I will show you also how to configure it. And then finally, I could make my decisions, and based on your variables, you could definitely cancel. So in this scenario, if I'm getting the case 1, so it's going and doing remaining remaining operation. But because I'm setting the variable here, sorry, here as in 0, this var temp, and I'm just checking if it is a where temp is 0 in the switch case. So I'm terminating it as a cancelled one. So I know there's already error, but I terminated not as a failed, but as a cancelled. So because I already catched it. What was the error in H3? Because it was a post call, but I'm trying to make it as a get, and it says you are not allowed to make a get call onto that one. So this kind of scenarios you could definitely think for that one. You need to create a logic app for the complex requirement, which is really important in your aspect. I mentioned like what could be the benefit by to creating or breaking down into the complex requirements. Run time output. So if you really need a high throughput, you could definitely go to the logic app, workflow settings, and you could enable it. By default, it's off, but you could enable it if you think that you will get a lot of like logic app have a lot of potential in terms of the performance. If you need to leverage it, you could use it, but please consider this is in a preview feature, so it's not guaranteed. Maybe it could change also later on. You definitely you want to just keep the history retention, and for the history retention by default, I think it's 90 days. You could change it to the custom. Yeah, it's a 90 days. You could minimize it till 7. The minimum should be 7. Yeah. So just an example for the scenario, if you are working for the dev environment where you are making a lot of changes continuously, you definitely don't need to retain your history for 90 days for sure, because as I mentioned, like for any storage also, you need to bear the cost for that. In that scenarios, you could minimize it to the 7 one, but definitely in the production, you want to keep a history for every run. So in that case, you could utilize till 90 days. So 90 days is on the consumption based model. But if you have a fixed pricing model, like for the ISC environment, you could go, I think, till 365 days for 1 year. Okay, then advisor recommendation you will get on the resource level. This on the left blade. It's always worth give you the advice for your security, for your cost related or the billing related stuff. There is no harm to just utilize this functionality. It's free of cost available. I have compiled a few links here, and it will be very useful for you on your Azure Logic App journeys. But before that, I'm gonna close. I would like to show a specific scenarios, like what basically I built very quickly. Let me go to the overview. So the thing is that let me just bring this. There is a SharePoint list, and I'm gonna add a new name there. I will show how it's gonna make an impact. So I just added a name. Now go and check. So before I'm going into that one very quickly about the run things. So the run is status if you're getting aborted. So that run stops or did not finish due to external problems. For example, a system outage or lapsed Azure subscription, something like that. So if it is aborted, if it is cancelled, the run will trigger and started but received a cancellation request. As I mentioned, I cancelled it inside my my actions. So I terminated as a cancelled. You have 3 options. You could go and terminate as a cancel, as a failed, and as success. So, but I make it as a cancelled. The next one is a fail. So at least one action is run failed. No subsequent action in the workflow was set up to handle the failure. As I mentioned, in this situation, whatever you're seeing as a failed, I had not implemented the try catch blocks, and that's why I got a failed one. I won't be able to capture those exceptions. If it is in a running state, the run will trigger and it's in a progress, but this status can appear for a run that is throttled due to action limits or current pricing plans. So if you already exceeded the numbers, or your price is already exhausted, it will go in a running, like it will show you all of your actions or the logic apps runs in a running state, and then after sometimes maybe it aborted or make some status change accordingly. Succeeded, that run succeeded. If any action failed, a subsequent action in the workflow handled that failure. So you could definitely either it's successfully completed or probably you terminated it as a successful. Timeout, yes, there is a scenarios where you will get a timeout also into that one. That run that run timeout because the current duration exceeded on the run duration time. As I mentioned, that what is the running time for that one. It's already mentioned in the previous slides. You could watch it. If it is something waiting, it means the run has not started or paused. For example, due to the earlier workflow instance that is still running, and you could maximum go till your throughput is maybe 25 run at a time, something like you already configured. Then it will show you in a waiting state. But let me go back and show. So I'm gonna refresh it, and you see here there was no last run recently. Because if you remember, I just made as a 500 days, so it will go and start execution after 500 days, but it's already started pulling into that one. So anything is already reached out to the queues if there is something. If you really need to execute, you could go and execute it. Like if you have a more trigger inside that one, you could definitely go and execute those triggers. I have only one trigger into that one. So when an item has been created, and if you see, I just need to refresh it and it started in a running phase. So what will be the output for that one? I will also show you. Meanwhile, I would like to show what I'm gonna achieve with this one. A second. So I'm expecting that I have created a list and I'm expecting the name should also be there. It's already reflected there. So my logic app is already executed. I will show that too. So the name is already reflected into the list. It should be in my contact of the dynamics. So let's see that one. Okay. And here we go. Okay. It's also reflected in my contact. So I pick the values from the list and I push it here. The scenario for the SharePoint list, maybe you could get it CSV upload or anything. In my scenario, maybe if someone is giving the feedback and as in for maybe session, I push those feedbacks from to the list, SharePoint list, and from list, if the item has been created, I'm pushing it to the dynamics and creating a lead or maybe a lead or contact something for me. So this is already there. Apart from that, what else it is doing? Let me quickly show. So I just create a dummy put request and it should be here. You see, I have already the run ID for that one for the logic app and I have a name. So it's my request is already came here. The last thing I just tweeted that one. So let me just refresh it quickly. So I made this all the things as a parallel. So all executed parallelly and demo tweeted Siraj. Now let me try to show you the run very quickly, how it's look like. So this took around 16.9 seconds to execute. Another important thing, like I'm gonna explain this block also, but you could leverage the run details. Okay, what action is taking how much time? So you have 27 actions succeeded, nothing is failed, nothing is in a running state, 5 is skipped. So there could be a scenario where you have a if else block, it could be skipped, nothing is aborted, and you can see a glimpse that okay, example, my catch block has been skipped because there was no error in something. And you could see, okay, how much maybe this is data versus taking a lot of time. It's 6.14 second. So in this way, you could get an insight for that one. Let me go back quickly. And if you really want to see, okay, what happened in every stage, second, I need to open it again. Okay, so when the item has been created, yes, the item has been created and it found the item from there. So it found the item and the other properties. I picked it up, I stored in a variable, then I made a parallel branch. So everything is simultaneously executed. So I create a new record in a Dataverse. I just create a new record in the Dynamics. Second thing, basically, I basically create like a new records again in a MS list, Microsoft list. So I post it there. I post a tweet also. So I just take a contact name and demo tweet. I concatenated it. And I also post over the HTTP, which I have shown you. And this for the demo purpose, I just posted in a try catch block. Another aspect is regarding the logic app run ID. This is again really important aspect, because if you're trying to log the errors, you definitely need to post the logic app run ID. So an example, I have the run ID this. I go back to the logic apps and I need to search, okay, just show me, if just in case you got an email that, okay, this logic app, the logic app run is failed and you need to really look for that one. You simply have the GUID for that one, or the IDs for the logic app run. Simply come and paste here and then go and check it. There will be a 1 value for that. So this is the easiest way. You could definitely think for that one to keep the run ID with you. Otherwise, there would be a scenario where you have 1,000, 1 million runs, and to find out the respective run from there, it would be really like it's not possible, in a normal way. So if you have the run ID directly with you, then it will be really easy to identify. And how to get a run ID, you just simply need to get a workflow name, and then you need to pick it from there. So it will store the run ID from there. An example, I just pick up the value. Maybe I could show you in a peak code, and you just simply workflow function, then run and name attribute from there. It will make you the workable solution. So this is all about that one. The last thing which I need to show you very quickly, which is basically, you can see the run history, and then you can see the trigger histories here. So let me just quickly conclude it. What is basically in a trigger history, what is in that one, like what all the status. So if the trigger status failed, it means there's something error occurred. And to review any generated error message for a trigger, you need to select the trigger attempts and then choose the output from there. A skipped is basically the trigger check that the endpoints but found no data to meet the specific criteria. Remember, you have to pay the cost even for that one, even if it is skipped. Succeeded, it means the trigger checked the endpoint and found, and the data is available. Usually a fired status also appear along the side of the status. If not, then the trigger definition might have some condition or the split on command that wasn't met. So this is something you also really need to consider and see all of your trigger histories from there. Okay. Now, I'm really thankful to all of you to spend your valuable time today, and looking for your positive feedback and suggestion. Please scan the QR code and use the short URL to access the feedback form. It will not take more than your 20 seconds, but it provides me the valuable responses. And it really means a lot for me to improve myself for the subsequent sessions over the Dynamic 365 Power Community platform. You can also connect me on my social platform. Ask your queries on my Twitter handler, which is @ambasha19, and scan the code. Connect me over the LinkedIn. Subscribe my YouTube channel from the slide, for the slides and more demos on the Azure Dynamic 365 and Power Platform technology. I hope you find the session interesting and useful, at least to find a new dimension on your integration requirement. I would like to open the floor for the question and discussion now, and try to quickly answer you over the call. And if the time excludes, for the next speaker, definitely I would be on the chat and I would be responded you there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambesh. Once again, fantastic session. Really good. Lots of great feedback. You've covered a lot of content there, Ambesh. Often things that get often ignored in Logic Apps, practices and patterns. You've covered securing the endpoints, try catches, all the issues you've been addressing. So really thank you for that great session. There is a question by David. He's asking, does concurrency incur more cost?
Yes. So the logic of the Logic Apps is pretty simple. The number of time your action will be executed, it will be metered accordingly. So if it is executed in a loop, if it is executed in a concurrent way, you need to pay the cost for that one. It's pretty simple. It's no rocket science there in terms of the cost here. Microsoft make it very simple for us.
And Qureshi is asking, is there a way to stop or break out of for each loop?
Okay, that is a tricky one. That need to be checked. I haven't encountered in those situations where the scenarios come, because definitely you can't use the terminate feature inside the loop. it will not allow you. So the moment you will try to use the terminate, it will stop you and it says that you can't use the in a for each loop. So I just honestly need to look into that one because I haven't encountered this situation where I need to definitely break it within inside the loop. But what we can do if I really don't want to execute the remaining step on some specific data met condition, I could definitely use the if else condition there, and I could move to the else condition, and yeah, then it will skip to the next one.
Fantastic, Ambesh. And so lots of great feedback from Dias as well as Zafar and everyone else. They're asking, can you please share your contact details, please, in the chat window so that the community can keep connected with you, Ambesh, please. So please share your LinkedIn and YouTube and blog and, in the chat window. That'll be really good.
Definitely.
Is that okay?
Definitely, I would. Yeah, definitely I would do this.
Fantastic, fantastic. Great stuff. So that was Ambesh, guys.